Ladies and gentlemen, please notice that exits are conveniently located at the front and rear of this auditorium. When leaving the theater, we suggest that the exit at the front of the auditorium will allow you easier access to the parking areas. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Butler.
And I'm Mike Field.
And welcome to Forgotten Cinema, now showing. Each episode, we highlight a brand new release. We'll discuss what we love about the movie or maybe don't love about it, but don't take our word for it. Go out and see the movie for yourself.
That wasn't a very enthusiastic opening. What's going on, Mike?
Nothing.
Oh boy, I knew this was coming.
I am just looking to get a new house in a new country.
You have to roll those R's and you have to speak in an
roll the
octave
R's.
As Mike is endeavoring to perform the Count Orlock performance for Bill Skarsgård in Nosferatu, that is what Mike and I saw this week. Actually, yesterday when we record this, we went to the 410 show at our local theater, which is our former employer, to watch this film. We'll get to the viewing of that movie and something that happened during it that was a little bit weird. But we're going to get into the movie. For those who are from our Patreon, you might have already listened to our lead up episode, Shadow of the Vampire, which we did beforehand for this. If not, you might go to it after. That's fine too. We kind of talk about that movie a little bit in anticipation of watching this film. And I was going to go through some stats. I'm like, I just want to actually, if you want to kind of give us a little quick synopsis, maybe for people who have no idea and have not seen this film. But I imagine a lot of people are interested to see this movie.
The Nosferatu is basically Dracula. So if you've seen our Shadow of the Vampire episode, we kind of go through that back in the 20s, 1927 to be exact, I believe. F.W. Murnau wanted to adapt Dracula for German cinema, and he couldn't get the rights from the Stoker estate, so he created his own basically rip-off Dracula. He called him Count Orlock. It follows a very similar plot to the Dracula novel, just kind of pared down. It was a silent film. It was a tremendous success. I'm sure many people have never seen the original film in its entirety, but I can almost guarantee you most people have seen some of the most important and kind of indelible lasting shots from that film. It's a very important film in cinema history. But yeah, basically it's just kind of gross Dracula. It's basically the same story. Count Orlock, lust for this woman. Count Orlock is like a gross looking guy. He lives in this in a very rural area of this one country in a castle. He wants to get to this woman. He gets her husband to come over, sell him real estate near his own house so he can ship his body over and woo or seduce this other man's wife and kind of take control of her. And I believe in the original, it's a much shorter movie. It's a lot older. There's not as much dialogue. The original Nosferatu, if I remember correctly, doesn't go into as much detail about why he really lusts after this woman, but this film, what we watched, does.
Yeah, before we get into it, we are going to spoil this film. So if you do not want to know stuff that happens in this movie, do not listen to us or watch us. We apologize. Come back because you might be interested in some of the stuff we had to talk about. More basically to Mike's point about what's in this film, what's not in the original. I do want to go back to what you were talking about with the silent film. I did not know, and this is in the notes kind of when I was looking some stuff up today for this episode, was that Stoker's estate sued Murnau, or took them to the court to have them because the movie was too similar to the book, to the novel at this time. Yeah. And she won. The Stoker estate won. And they were commanded to destroy all the copies of this film. So
really,
the very fact that you have seen Nosferatu, the original, what is it called? What's the original title called? Nosferatu,
the Symphony of something
of blood,
yeah.
right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that you were able to see that is kind of a miracle because they were all supposed to be destroyed. So I thought that was extremely interesting. I did not know that when we did the Shadow of the Vampire episode. I wish I had brought that up, but regardless, yeah, my biggest question was that in this film she invokes, as a young girl, Ellen Hutter, played by Lily-Rose Depp, she invokes the Nosferatu to join her because she's in a moment of despair and whatnot. And so that's kind of, that's why she feels, and that makes sense for her, the way it ends, because she feels she needs to end it because she started it. But that was not in the original, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was very, you know what it reminded me of? And I was waiting to bring this up on the podcast instead of just mentioning it as we walked into the theater. It's kind of a more like a more adult, gross version of 11 in Stranger Things. She's got psychic abilities. She's like kind of, you know, bemoaned for it. Her father kind of disowns her because her powers just get creepier and creepier. Looking into the void, she finds this creature that kind of wants to be her friend but isn't, but her communicating with it is what's giving it power to come to the real world. So it's very similar to like Vecna.
She also opened the crack. She also, and Stranger Thing is the reason why the crack
exists. Yeah, it's because of her.
Exists, which is not. I mean, yes, that's a really good analogy. That's a really good comparison. But that's not unheard of throughout a lot of these. You know, good versus evil. Like, you know, good doesn't exist without evil, and sometimes when good exists, almost like in The Dark Knight, where the conversation he has, you have to expect. Or at the end of Batman Begins, right? When he shows him the Joker card, and the whole idea is like you had to expect the criminals were going to match you. And so I know I'm paraphrasing, but
he does that. Yeah.
So I think that's a theme that's throughout. I like that theme, and I like when I see it, and I like the fact, like I said in this one, that she invokes him.
Yes.
So this movie is written and directed by Robert Eggers. For those who don't know out there, he's done The Witch, The Northman. I think Northman was his most recent one prior to this, I believe.
Yes,
I've seen The Northman. I've seen The Lighthouse. He did that as well. I did not see The Witch.
You haven't seen The Witch?
No, I never. You know, it was one of those films that I think came out when there's a couple of the ones that came out, and I just never went back to it. And I think it came and left. So
it was kind of the first of that kind of elevated. What we call it on our podcast usually is that first of that elevated horror.
Sure.
It's worth a watch, but it is rather slow. But it's very interesting and very well shot, especially for one of his first big films.
And a lot of people that are involved in this film, even from the producer Chris Columbus, who produced The Witch, and who Eggers, compliments repeatedly on, if you listen to interviews about how he's being his mentor and helping him shepherd him through this project, his career basically up to this point, and the composer and cinematographer, they're all from a lot of Eggers' other films, so which is cool. And I think you kind of get that sense if you've watched those other movies, the way they look, like they're all dark. I mean, it's just all dark. I was going to get into the characters first, but let's get into what you thought about the look of the film and just kind of everything that goes into making the movie, the behind the scenes, the below the line, the behind the scenes. What stood out for you the most in terms of just maybe the look of the film, or just, it could be a production design, whatever it is.
It was very dark. It was very grim, which isn't what I was expecting it. It's a lot when it's a 2 hour and 15-minute movie. Like there's no light at all. Like I wanted to compare it to, and I was wondering if he didn't do, it was someone else, did The Green Knight, because I really like The Green Knight, and stylistically it's very similar, but The Green Knight has some light and some color every once in a while that kind of pulls you out of that dreariness. So I found this movie maybe a little too heavy on the dreary, just a tad. Okay. But I found the sets incredible. The costumes were great. And again, like his films have a style. You can't say they're not well shot, beautiful films. It's just 2 hours and 15 minutes in that kind of really dreary world kind of really brings you down after a while. But I think it does its job really, really well. And it plays with darkness and light. Like I think they did a really good job both showing and hiding Count Orlock in terms of like revealing what they wanted to reveal with shadow. I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah, just to your point, the Green Knight was done by David Lowery. So yes, it's a dark film, and I think you have to be okay with that going in. I don't think if you're expecting something well lit, I think you're going to be disappointed. There's some moments where they do play with light, and I'm thinking of when he is on the road and they show the snow coming down and the patches of light between the trees on that long road when Thomas Hutter's first going to Count Orlock's estate.
Yeah, and he floats into the carriage.
Yeah, I thought that was a really that was what struck me the most in terms of the filmmaking aspect of the movie. Was the choice of shots, the one shots that became twos, that became long shots.
Right.
If for those who listen to the main show, I love Steven Spielberg, and that he does a lot of that in his movies, and I really appreciate that because that lets the actors in the scene kind of play, and it lets them perform. And I want to see that. And I want to watch a performance. Like, yes,
right.
Action films and yes, movies. Sometimes you need those quick cuts for certain scenes and certain action beats. But a movie like this, and most movies, 80% of movies I watch, I want to see the performance on screen. I don't want it to see broken up because that to me, it's more impressive. So I like that the camera moves. I enjoy when he's walking to the when in the change of shot choices when he's walking to the carriage and he clearly gets onto the dolly and he floats into the carriage, stuff like that.
Right.
I think that was all well done. I really enjoyed that. I like the mood works, the cinematography works, everything works. The look of the film and the production design of the film and the set design all works, albeit it's dark, and that's fine. I understand that. But to me, it all works. I didn't have any problem with anything like that. Did you at all in terms of just like the look of the film at all? Did you have any problems with it other than what you just said?
No, other than the fact that it was just a little too long to be in that jury state. No, it was all beautiful. Everything was well done. I agree. The one shots, especially when you focus on Lily-Rose Depp's character, like that, those like the stuff she has to do, both act internally and physically, is really impressive to show as a one shot. You're involved. You're like, oh wow, okay, I'm in it. And those quick cuts would absolutely take you out of it. And the fact that they didn't cut until like it was necessary or until the action was done really, really helped set the unsettling tone of the film.
I wonder if I have a couple questions about a lot of that stuff. Is did they ramp up the action a little bit in terms of I think you're talking about when she's on the bed
and for all her spasms and stuff.
I wonder if they ramped it up a little bit. I'm just curious. Also, I'm very curious how much digital effects were used in this movie. I know they shot in the Czech Republic. I know they shot overseas in Prague. I'm just curious what was enhanced digitally. That's all. I really just enhanced what was enhanced digitally on the screen. I'm curious about that because I just want to know like what is real and what's not real. But right. it all blends well. The fact that I don't know and I want to know, it's a testament to what was on screen. So I really appreciated that. What you were talking about before in terms of the dreariness, I think you're talking about pacing of the film. So why don't we? And that's one of my issues with the movie is pacing. And yes, it's a slow film, and that's fine. I thought maybe in the third act, this movie started limping to the end a little bit. And more to the point, like when he gives her 3 days, the 3-day ultimatum, I thought I was like, okay. But then like we had to cut back to Albin and Sievers, the two doctors trying to solve the plague and see what's happening. Then we cut to the Harding family, just they're being destroyed, which we knew was going to happen. They're friends. It just felt like, okay, we're doing this to this because we had to get to the 3 days and then we had to get to the end. We know, maybe because I know the story, maybe because I know already how it's supposed to end. I just felt in the third act, maybe there was room to trim, but again, who knows? That's just my preference. Again, it might be my expectations of what's going on. I know what's going to happen. So that might be on me, not on the filmmakers or on the story being told to me. What did you feel about the pacing of the film, especially in that third act, like I just said?
I thought that I always think a horror movie shouldn't be over 2 hours. That's just a fact. I think it bemoans the point part of the time or numbs you to the horror. I think I had more issues with the first act. I thought the setup was a little too slow. I was like, let's go. And I think you and I had the same issue. Like once the movie started going in the second act, I didn't really look at my watch, but I think you and I were both like, and I think you made the comment, yeah, it's only been like 40 minutes, dude. Like it's the first act is just slow. And I think you could speed that up a little bit. My issues with Act 3 are that it's kind of convenient of let's do it. I think the 3 days is kind of very horror trope, 7 days, but you don't need 3 days. The days, like you said, they almost seem to combine. They didn't seem like 3 separate days. You knew what he was going to do. He basically telegraphed what he was going to do. I'm going to kill those you love, but I'm going to leave your husband till last. So you knew who he was killing. So I felt that was very arbitrary. I think you wasted a nice horror beat moment with what's his face? With Friedrich Harding when he goes into the tomb to be with his Anna and his kids. Those should have been vampires. Like the fact that he just kind of passes out on top of the coffin is a wasted moment of having some nice little action beat there of like, oh snap, vampire children, and they massacre him. You know that he turns Count Orlock doesn't have any problem turning anyone into vampires because you meet one early on in the coffin and they murder. So I just don't understand why you didn't like that. That felt like a wasted moment of a decent horror moment, just to be like, like why not do that? But that being said, I thought the final scene was really kind of well done. Like I felt we led into a really nice final moment between Orlock and Ellen rather. But yeah, I think Act 3 was kind of very muddled.
Well, to the first act point, so that you're when you're talking, you think that the gypsy town doesn't need to be there at all. You don't,
or done a little different. I don't need the dancing and being like, oh, I get it. Like, oh, it's awkward, but he's like, that's a very like Northman witch kind of scene.
Sure.
Like, I don't know if I need that to be in there. I do think the hotel scene needs to be in there where the woman's like, I pray you not to go, blah, 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 blah. That's classic. That's from the original Nosferatu, obviously. And they do, that's important enough to be shown when they do Shadow the Vampire.
But yeah,
I think, just speed it up a little bit, like to get to that point. Cause I think the movie begins really, like you said, when the carriage picks him up, it's really nice. But when he's talking to Orlock, Nicholas Holt's character is talking to Orlock in his chambers. That's where I was kind of locked into the movie. That's where I was like, all right, now I'm into this.
The gypsy scene is the part I'm talking about when he gets to the gypsy camp or the town.
Oh, you're talking about the dream sequence?
That's the same town. No. When he gets, and then he wakes up. And he wakes up and he follows the Virgin and all that stuff. And they say it's a dream. I assumed it was real because of his.
Because he had muddy boots
but when he follows them, that's to set up the fact that you can tempt the vampire with innocence, with somebody who is it's showing you the ending. First of all, I don't know how I got on Reddit, and I don't know how I ended up going down this thread. But someone on, maybe it was Twitter or X, someone on social was talking about how they believe that the gypsy town was all in his head. That was Orlock putting that in his head as he gets there, which I don't buy, because why would he show him his ultimate demise, how he could be defeated? There's no way he would do that. Gypsies move. Gypsies know that he's there and he's going to Nosferatu and it's not good. They know the omens. They're out of there. So I think that's why when he shows up, nobody's in camp anymore and he has to walk. I think they just stole his horse and they took off. Like that's what they do.
100%. Yeah. Someone has been turned into a vampire. Up. It's not safe here anymore. We got to go. 100%. I and that wouldn't make sense because then the nuns find him and bring him there, and I just don't buy it.
Yeah, and to your point in terms of trimming it, I can understand the 2 hours and 12 minutes, the 132 minute runtime, simply because it's a horror drama. But yes, I think it could have been a tighter, leaner 145 maybe. I'm surprised that they showed the ship stuff. I didn't think really that was necessary to the story.
Yeah, neither did I. It was just just to get him to do more vampire violence.
And that's the same way that's why when I brought up the Alban Sievers trying to solve the plague kind of issue, and they were like, he's crying, like all that stuff. This seemed like a very intimate film between Count Orlock and the Hutters, and the Harding's family is kind of a collateral damage. And I have no problem with everyone else being in there, but everything else just felt like it distracted me from that personal story. And that was more interesting, more intriguing. When Orlock is on screen, I'm standing up in my seat and paying attention. So I just felt everything else was pulling me away from that too much. I don't know. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I want more Orlock. I want more the vampire. I think Orlock was superbly done. I think it was awesome. Although we were laughing about his mustache, and I will continue to laugh about his mustache. That's ridiculous. I sent you a Yosemite Sam gif earlier today. But I also, like, the more it went on, the more I was like, I kind of really dig the mustache because he's not from Germany. He's basically Russian. He's got the big hat. It gives me very big Rasputin vibes. I thought it was really cool. When he speaks, I'm listening. The accent, the voice, the look, like the fact that he's so slow and deliberate. It's awesome. But then you go to the doctor, and I found the plague. I did think the plague aspect was really interesting. I did like that a lot. But I do think it detracted because it's just, like you said, I think we could have still had some of that without going to the doctor too often and showing too much of the town. It's just, I feel like those minutes could have been spent maybe more on Willem Dafoe's character, which I thought we could have used a couple more minutes with, or back with the Hardings or the Hutters.
We've talked about Orlock. We talked about the characters enough. Let's get into some of the performances. What's a standout for you? Obviously, I mean, let's put Orlock aside. Obviously, Skarsgård is very good, and we both. I think Orlock is, and like it's his own Orlock. Like there's nobody else that's going to play it that way. Aside from him, who else stood out for you in the movie? Because we're going to say he is a standout.
Lily-Rose Depp. You know, she does a really good job for a Nepo baby. Like, I was really impressed with the range of emotion. Like that must have been a physically and emotionally draining role to play Ellen. Just like there was so much she had to do. Like I mentioned, like her convulsing and her movement. I just thought that was incredible. That takes practice and precision and just that I was really impressed. Almost all of her scenes were these intense emotions that if not done well would have just come off as annoying. And I would have just been like, ugh, shut her up. Like give her more laudanum, please give her more ether. Let's go.
A lot of ether.
Yeah, a lot of ether, a lot of being tied up, a lot of corsets and draining blood.
It's congestion of blood, Butler. You know that's the problem.
That's always the problem. Listen, my what do they call it? My humors are off. But I think she did a really, really, really good job, and I think that just as important as Orlock is, her character is just as important as Orlock is. So I thought she did an incredible job.
Yeah, and it's very easy to perform that character. I mean, it's a tough character to do because you have to. You're pretty much you're not really one note, but you can definitely fall into portraying Ellen as one note, as being under a spell and dreary and not. And it's really difficult to find colors in that and that the different shades of gray, mind you. So I agree with you. I wanted to ask you about Aaron Taylor Johnson as Friedrich Harding, and I want to ask you this question.
Okay,
is he purposely trying to be somebody who is putting on airs? Like that's how he speaks. He's very formal. He's very like, I couldn't decipher if that was the choice of, yes, this is the note I got. Right. I need to play him as somebody who's, I will call you a cab at my expense. Of course, like it felt very theatrical and it felt very put upon. And I don't know if that was that's how he portrayed it, or that was what the note he got is, this is what the type of person you need to be. Because what did you think of that, his performance?
I think I didn't want to bring him up because I didn't want to say anything disparaging. I like Aaron Taylor Johnson. I think he's great in the Kick-Ass movies, which is where I first saw him. He's been really good in a lot of the movies he's done lately, Craven notwithstanding. But maybe he's great in Craven. I haven't seen it as of this taping, and I don't care how bad it is. I'm still going to see it. And also, you should watch Bullet Train because he's very good in Bullet Train. I do really want to see Bullet Train.
I believe it's on Netflix.
Is it now? Okay.
I believe so.
I think they used language that was very Shakespearean, not quite Shakespearean, but definitely kind of near Shakespearean, high end, high class English. I don't know if he's had the training to really pull it off, but like you said, maybe it was because he's highfalutin and rich, but I do feel like his performance really stood out to me in a way that screamed acting.
There's no,
as opposed to anyone else.
There's some scenes when they're talking, they're discussing, and there's no emotion behind some of the dialogue, some of the line deliveries, and I don't know if it was just because they're in a formal setting and that's how it is, and that's what this really isn't the time for emotions, and I just don't know. I was conflicted. I don't know what to think, and maybe I need to see it again.
I mean, I think
understand.
that Nicholas Holt's Thomas and Anna are all emoting, even though they also have the same kind of language. I don't know. I mean, the doctor, Dr. Sievers or whatever, he's very proper and very kind of low key. But I think that's his whole demeanor is just, I'm always going to be calm. Whereas Friedrich is not always calm, but he always seems like he's, like you said, either putting on airs or he's reading from a script that he just memorized 5 minutes before. I can't tell.
How dare you? And Willem Dafoe is Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe is almost playing. I feel like Willem Dafoe is playing the prequel character to his character from Poor Things. I don't know if you saw Poor Things, and obviously he's a mad scientist in Poor Things again, and he's performing a lot of experiments on himself. And obviously Emma Stone, who's in that movie, plays his daughter. His daughter. So he but the roles seem very similar, except this one, the Professor Albin Eberhard von Franz, is
basically
more,
your Van Helsing.
It's more quote unquote realistic in terms of when Poor Things, it's obviously a surrealistic type of portrayal. I felt similarities there, and I don't know, maybe that's just Willem Dafoe.
I think it's very similar. I mean, it's not too dissimilar from his Lighthouse performance in terms of
True.
the unhingedness. Like, I feel like maybe, he's worked with Dafoe before, and Eggers was just like, you know what? I want him back. And I want him to be this version. This is my version of Van Helsing. But this is what I want to do. I thought he did a very good job, though. I really like his line that he gives, and I can't even remember it now. But where he's basically laughing and saying, she's got to be sacrificed. We kill the devil tonight. And he's lighting the fires, and he waves his 2 fire sticks over the grave of Orlock. You're just like, that's a great signal to be like, and now we're in the last scene. This is it.
Yeah. There's a couple lines in this film that I have heard before in some fashion in other movies and other stories. And I don't know if that's on purpose or not. And it was one of her lines, one of Ellen's lines, when she talks about, I would cry, but I have no more tears to cry, or something like that. Like, I've heard that before.
Right. That's an older one. Yep.
And there's another line that I think Dafoe delivers. And there's a couple lines I'm just like, I've heard this before, and I can't pinpoint it. I'd have to watch it again. I'd have to write them down. And forgive me for not just kind of remembering, but there were a few lines where I peeked up and wait a minute, that's somewhere. That's in my head somewhere from something.
I mean, the professor's line about the Nosferatu, the plague character, the vampire, the Nosferatu, that's definitely a paraphrasing of another kind of introduction to vampires.
Sure.
Did you roll your eyes on the line where she goes, tell me, doctor, or whatever, does evil come from within us or beyond? And I was just like, oh, that's a bad line.
But there was a couple lines like that in this film that made me stood up that I didn't love. And I was just like, that's because, and I'm saying because I've heard them before. Like, I'm like, why are I feel like we're recycling some stuff that we've heard. Yeah. That I wasn't a huge kind of fan of, but whatever. And that's just, again,
I do
preference.
like the Nosferatu's line of, she asks, I can't remember what she's asking him, but basically it's when Ellen finally confronts Orlock, and she's like, you're a monster, or you're evil. And he says, I am appetite. nothing more. I thought that was a good
I'm
line.
just an appetite. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. I probably caught about 85% of his dialogue, Orlock's dialogue. Like I had a tough time picking up the opening
dialogue.
I had a tough time picking up like the openings of some sentences, but then I get to the meat of it. I go, okay, I know what he's saying. But there was a couple times I'm like, what? Again, that's just, I guess that's just me in my old age. Would you have liked this film if Anya Taylor-Joy and Harry Styles were in it? Because they were originally cast in this film, and I want to say they were the Hutters, and they both dropped out for different reasons, for scheduling conflicts, Furiosa or whatever. Would you have liked that?
I like Nicholas Hoult, and I think he's really coming into his own as an actor. Harry Styles, he's a singer. Which he admitted, maybe this is why he dropped out of Nosferatu, but I believe he admitted that he preferred singing in an interview like over the summer or something. And I just haven't seen him do enough stuff other than coming out at the end of the Eternals. That would make me go, this guy could nail this kind of movie. Like this takes training. This kind of movie takes Shakespearean training. I feel like you need theatrical training to pull off the dialogue in this movie, add some of the emotion, I think. As for Anya Taylor-Joy, I would be annoyed to see her in her 8th movie of the year. I think you can have too much of a good thing. I'm not saying I don't like her as an actress. I just think, calm down. If she's the main character in everything, it kind of takes you out of a movie, I think. Unless you're like an Arnold or a Denzel, because then you're coming to see Denzel and Arnold, and it doesn't take you out of it because you're there for them. But I think she could have pulled it off. I do. I think she's very talented, and I think she's worked with Eggers before, so he must have had a reason to cast her in this. She's good in The Witch.
You never saw Don't Worry, Darling, right? The Olivia Wilde film, because Styles is in that.
No, because that's the only other film I can think of that he was really in. Right.
Yeah, and I think my note for that was like, he's fine, but he's okay. Like he doesn't take the character in any way. It's just there it is, flat on screen.
Right.
So anyone else could have probably done a little bit more with that role. So his self actualization of I just want to be a singer kind of thing is probably a good thing. I mean, he knows that, and it's good that you know that. Hey, it's good that you did it and you tried it, and if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's great.
Because I think that if you're like, just to like compliment Nicholas Hoult too. Like, I think if you play Thomas Hutter, you have to be super vulnerable. Like, you have to basically, you're basically getting raped mentally during the entire movie, and you have to take it. And I think that takes an actor to know that, to not get in their own head of, I don't want to seem like, a giant pussy throughout the whole movie, but that's what you need to do. And I think if you're like, I'm an up and coming star, I'm going to do this, I think it takes someone with enough ego to have no ego to play that part.
It seems that Skarsgård likes to just portray people with, well, he puts a lot of prosthetics on, like, because he did obviously Pennywise, but I have a quote here that I have a quote here from him. I don't know if you saw this about playing Orlock. Did you see this quote?
I don't know.
I gotcha. I've never been more terrified of a role, and probably won't be again. The whole journey was so intense. Once you start channeling something that's not you, you feel like a vessel. And then after filming, he stated that he would never play a role as evil as this one again. So I can understand that. I can understand, like, hey, this is too much for me.
It's like a lot of actors, when they say that, it's like, come on, man, you're acting. But like, when you're playing a role for that many months and you have that much prosthetics on, so that when you look in the mirror, you don't even see yourself, and you're supposed to be portraying a character. I can see, like, you stare at what's the line? You stare at evil long enough, it stares back at you. Stare into the abyss. Yeah. I think, the abyss. Yeah. I think that's probably true when you have that much, when you're not, like, probably same with Colin Farrell and the Penguin, when you're those kind of transformative characters, it's probably a lot tougher to get out of it, because you're seeing that character more than you're seeing yourself for most of your shooting day.
Well, you hear it all the time when actors play a role that's specifically evil or sad or depressive or just, on the negative side of things. You need to go do a movie that is just complete lighthearted fare and complete to kind of wash that out of their system. And you get that. So that's why sometimes you see an actor in like this like big, deep, depressive Oscar award-winning film, and their next film is just like rom-com. But it's like, that's why, because they need to just kind of unplug from that other movie.
Next time you see Pacino, he's dancing to Dunkachino rap.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I know he hates that. That is my favorite. One of my favorite moments in any Adam Sandler film is the Dunkachino commercial. I love the Dunkachino commercial. And Al Pacino and Jack and Jill is good. He's good. I know Jack and Jill's not that great, but Al Pacino and Jack and Jill is good. Listen, you asked me why I watch everything. That's why, because you get those little nuggets.
But Bill Skarsgård is also, I think he's talking a lot of crap, though, when he says that, because you know where he's going to be next? He's going to be playing Pennywise again on the HBO show.
Listen, they give you enough money. They're gonna.
I'll never play evil again for $3 million.
I know.
Where's my clown makeup?
Something I appreciate about this film is that this film has a $50 million budget. We talk about a lot of times how there's what happened to the $20 to $80 million budgeted movies, what happened to the mid-range movies. I mean, this film, the fact that this film is $50 million and it's going to make it. Yeah. And that's great. That's great to see. That's great to you kind of hope that those come back, because then you start getting solid films that are modest made, but they become successful. They make their money, and then you get more films like that. So, big budget films. I'm tired of seeing $300 million movies because it's just not worth it. They're never as good. There's no bang for that buck. So give me a $20 to $80 million film where you're putting some money behind it and you're getting some good people involved and you're cranking out some good stuff. Let's talk about the scariest part of the movie for both of us, Mike. The guy that walks to the front of the theater in the movie theater. So we're watching this movie. We're in the back row because when I pick the seat, I don't want somebody behind me. I don't want somebody talking in my ear. I don't care if you have the recliners, there's still somebody behind you. I hate it. That's why I always choose the back row, because I just don't want anyone behind me. Anyways, we're sitting there and then Mike nudges me and points to the corner. This dude is I guess somebody started coughing, and he gets up and he walks to the front of the theater. So we're in stadium seating. He walks down, goes to the front of the theater where the exit is, like under the screen, and just stands there, Blair Witch style, like not moving. And
for a good 10 minutes or so.
Yes. And I'm missing the movie because all I'm doing is watching this guy. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? I put my recliner down. I was ready to go. I was like, something's happening. I'm doing it. I mean, I was joking because I knew he was coughing and that's what he was doing.
I was pretty sure he was taking a piss.
Yeah. So then he stops, he sits in the front row for a couple of minutes, and he gets up again and he sits in the second to front row. And then he clearly didn't want to go back up to where his buddy was or his wife. And then they left. And Mike goes down there to check. I go check and see if he peed. So he goes down there and check. He didn't. But it's like, people are weird, man. They're just weird. Just go outside. Just go out of the theater. Go in the little hallway, cough it up, and stand there and watch the movie. It's fine. Don't be a weirdo and stare in the corner like you've been possessed by the Blair Witch.
I think he got up to the exit door to the auditorium and saw that it was that an alarm would sound if he opened it. And he was like,
So let me stare at it for 5 minutes.
Basically, I got a cough, so I'm going to cough right here. And he's just like,
not even watching the movie. Like, what? Come on. People are just weird. So that was the scariest part of this film for me, was just this dude who just decided to stand up and stare at the corner.
It wasn't Orlock's pee-pee when he stands up out of the grave.
That was what? No. I mean,
I guess hey. Someone sent that to Nicholas Hoult, and he's got it framed on his wall right now.
Yeah, because the comment was, I guess, when he's sucking him dry off his chest, I guess Eggers asked, "Hey, how are you okay?" He's like, he told him he could feel his prosthetic penis on his leg, and that's why they sent it to him at the end of the thing. So, I mean, I'm like, thanks, Robert. I'm throwing that out. I don't know what happened. That'll be at like some
auction place.
Not auction, but I was going to say like, what's the word? Like some Goodwill in LA or something. It'll be at some swap, and they'll be like, "Hey, check it out, man! I got it." And then you'll see it. It'll probably do all the Angora convention tours.
Dick.
So, I mean, we don't ask. I mean, obviously, in the other show, we ask who you recommend this for and stuff like that. But I'm not going to do that here. But I am going to ask this, Mike. You think this is a movie you need to see in the theater? Or do you think you can wait to come to watch it at home?
Well, here's the thing. I think it would have been really cool to see on IMAX because of how It's got such beautiful cinematography, and I feel like the eeriness and the bass of the film would have been really cool with the IMAX speakers. But if you're not going to go for that, and it's limited engagement in IMAX, and if that's not really what gets you going, like it's not an action movie, then I would say no. And I don't think we got anything out of seeing it in a theater, although we saw it on a smaller screen. You can see this at home. I would say turn your lights off. Don't watch it during the day. I think you need a dark environment. I think if you watch it during the day with your blinds open, you're kind of ruining the experience.
Well, I think you got to pull up the brightness, though. I don't think anybody's going to sit there and want to watch it. Like we both have gaming systems, and we both have new TVs, and when they have you set it up and like just go black just before you cannot see that image, or that image is just
one image. Yeah.
I never do that because that's too dark. I have to just go a little bit lighter. So people are gonna put up the brightness if they watch this at home.
As soon as Orlock kind of is seen and is shadowy, people will pause it and turn up the brightness. Just be like, I need to see him.
Yeah,
it's like you're gonna see him. Don't worry.
Yeah, I don't think this is. I understand what you're saying in terms of the music and the mood for the IMAX theater. I don't think this is. I don't think this is an IMAX film. You would like.
I'm only saying for like cinephiles.
No. I was gonna say you would like to see all movie theaters upgrade their general cinemas to be a more immersive experience. Better sound, better audio, better quality on screen. Unfortunately, we're people who love movies. There are a lot of people that don't want to watch movies like that. There are a lot of people that would rather just watch movies with the lights halfway up, you know what I mean, on their phones,
subtitles on.
Yeah, no, and that, yeah, I think the experience that we're looking for, I would love to see it like in the Dolby house where it's like, it's just, everything's just crystal clear and it's not, you know what I mean? I don't need the big screen. Like, I don't need the big screen unless it's shot with IMAX cameras and it's like Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol when the image moves as he steps out. Like, if it's that kind of event, I want to see it there. I just want an immersive experience, and you're not going to get it in the way the cinemas are and the way the auditoriums are now, because it sounds, the sounds are, half those speakers don't work because we go up there and unplug them when they're not working, and they never replace them. Yeah, that's right. Trade secret. So the movie theater has speakers all around in an auditorium, and what up happening when speakers go bad, they start buzzing, and people will complain. There's something wrong with speaker. So instead of fixing the speaker, which we can't do, we need to go order a new speaker or have somebody come in to do it, because God forbid we do it. We'll get up on a ladder and unplug it, so it's just not on.
Right. Or switch the amps. So the sound's coming out of a different speaker, because like not the main sound happens.
Well, we were switching amps with 8 back in the day, because when 8 was the IMAX theater, because they got rid, because those speakers on the side of the wall weren't being used at all. So they were just sitting there. So we were switching with that because, well, we might as well just use them. Right. But yeah, no, that's a little trade secret there. So Mike, I think we've said pretty much everything we need to say here. You want to wrap it up with anything? You got anything what I haven't brought up yet, or?
I will mention, I like the effect of Orlock feeding. I like that he went for the heart instead of the neck, which was different. And I loved the sound design on the gulping. Just the amount of blood he drank was just like unsettling.
Yeah. The wide shot when he's on top of Thomas in front of the fireplace. Yes. Yeah. When he's like, what's up with the breathing? Is that just because he's old? Is that?
I think it's because he's an old vampire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And they don't really talk about that in this one. In the original, or in Shadow of Vampire, they say that he's immortal, but he still gets old.
He's ancient. Yeah, he's an ancient vampire. Yeah. Which you kind of get you kind of get the effect of, because the vampire that wakes up in the coffin obviously still looks human.
Yeah.
But he obviously no longer looks very human, and he's all rotted and decomposed when you finally see his naked body.
Well, I think that's also the effect of
the sunlight hitting him,
dying,
right?
But yeah, and they have this idea that you're immortal and you still age. It happens throughout a lot of vampire lore, but the blood is supposed to rejuvenate them, and that's why they always look young. So
thirsty, yeah,
they don't have that kind of that idea here with this movie, which is cool, which is a cool different take. Yeah, sweet. I don't know. Why don't you give them where they can find us, other than YouTube, where they are now.
You can find us at Forgotten Cinema.
I apologize.
You can find us at ForgottenCinemaPodcast.com or wherever you get your podcast. Why don't you go down in those comments that you see down below? Let us know what your favorite part of Nosferatu was. What's your favorite vampire movie other than Nosferatu? And what you thought of Bill Skarsgård's mustache. If you want to support the show, we also have a Patreon where we have exclusive episodes like the Shadow of the Vampire lead up. We have a whole bunch of episodes coming out where we focus on what's the name of that show now we're doing?
Oh, Look Back.
Look backs, where we look at popular films. We're going to look back at all the Thing movies. So the original Thing from the 40s or 50s, the
57.
John Carpenter's The Thing, and then the remake. So we're going to do those and take a look at them and give our thoughts on those. You can find those exclusively on Patreon, and we have a merch shop if you want to support us there. But honestly, just watching and clicking on those little movie icons right there and watching another episode helps us out a great deal as well.
Yeah, thanks for listening to our Now Showing. I believe our next Now Showing episode is going to be Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, correct?
Is that before or after the Cameron Diaz movie?
That's before. I believe that's before.
Yes, Den of Thieves 2.
So by that, no, you won't, because you'll see our Now Showing, and then in a couple weeks after that, we'll have to do an episode of the original Den of Thieves on our main show, Forgotten Cinema. We kind of screwed that up. We didn't really plan properly, but that's okay. Who cares? So that's our next Now Showing is Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, followed by Back in Action. We're going to do a Netflix film. I'm curious about doing that. See how that performs, since it's a streamer, and we haven't done really a streamer Now Showing ever.
Yeah, and since Roadhouse.
That's true. Oh, interesting. All right, then. Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day. Happy New Year. This is what we're doing this. We're recording this on New Year's Eve. So hopefully your 2025 starts off well. I'm Mike Field.
I'm Mike Butler.
And this is Forgotten Cinema Now Showing.
Forgotten Cinema.
Oh, boy.
I got to grow that mustache now.
Oh, please do.